So scales of permanence, again, we come back to is what P.A. Yeomans teaches. Remember from your master plans, you can't really change the climate, make sure you like it. After that, the land shape is hard to change, so they're only keylining. They're not changing the land shape, they're working with the land shape. After that, we can work on water, so they keyline to affect water. Then they put in roads, access points. That's where we saw the roads that they were making on contour. Trees planted next to the roads, subdividing, and then water, soils. The soil building is an output of the water harvesting. How does that work? So here's a degraded landscape. Really compacted, barely any grass growing. You look, you see clay and stuff, right? They come and they try to pull the keyline plow, but it's so compacted they can't really pull it more than like 3 inches, maybe 6, but normally only 3 inches. The tractor's not big enough and strong enough. And then they plant seeds. They plant good grasses. First level are weeds. So first we have fungi, first bacteria form on rocks. Then fungi starts growing, starts to make early soils. Then we have weeds, yeah? Then we have what's called first level grasses, first succession grasses, really poor grasses, not very good. After first level grasses, we can get to second level successional grasses. That's where what we know as vegetables grow, okay? So right now, what you're looking into is almost a weed regime. They're not even in the first level grasses, much less getting into second level grasses, which requires, and we'll see in our soils day, the root systems of each plant is developed by the soil conditions that it developed in. So if you don't have the right soil conditions, the plant won't grow. So vegetables as we know them grow in second level successional grasses, which need more air and oxygen. So this is growing weeds because of the soil condition. That's why weeds grow there. And that's why the good grasses won't grow. So they go and they put in better grasses that have better root systems. As we go up the food system, the roots get bigger in proportion to the density and nutrition of the food. So think about a fruit tree. Big roots, big fruit, right? So we see a root structure to fruit to the output or yield, right? There's a relationship. That's why weeds, as we know them, don't have any fruits or anything. They don't have anything to eat. Very small root system because they can't get in there. The next year they come and they offset the plow and they can pull it, instead of 3 inches, they can pull 6 inches because the roots and the water has decompacted the soils. So at that point, the weeds start to die. They don't like those soil conditions, right? And then the better grasses take over. The better grasses grow taller, take away the sunlight, nutrition, and the weeds die. The next year, if they need to, they'll offset again, and they'll pull it, and in some instances, they've pulled it, a plow as deep as 18 inches. So you go from 3 inches of soil to 18 inches of soil. But remember, you cannot have soil without water and oxygen. So if the oxygen is cut off, the soil dies. Or if the water doesn't penetrate, the soil will die, even if it has oxygen. So we need that's why they're doing this. So at that point, once they get it living, and they don't compact it again through the poor management of animals, right, by not controlling them properly, then the soils will stay there. So if I want to have animal systems, this works, but if I want to have agricultural systems, if I want to, like my mother-in-law, she has her garden, or my garden, I have to work on my soils like with humic materials, biology, air, and water. So that's the machine that does it. They pull it on these broad scale landscapes, mostly to plant new trees. Here they're cutting, they're putting in seeds for new plants, and they have bio-tea. So you'd see the blue thing, they're putting in compost tea. So they're putting in affected microorganisms to rework on the soil. They're putting in better plants. And this particular one, they're putting in oats and vetch. So this farmer is converting a pasture system, and they're growing oats for the, say, organic market in Australia. So they're using the keyline plow to get their oats to grow with what would have been, say, a pasture. So that's the new oats coming up, and they describe that as a weed suppression and a carbon crop, because after they harvest the oats, then they leave the stubble as a carbon suppression. So this is the two things, the old school way, which is called a chisel plow. It turns over the soil, kills the microbes, because once the microbes get affected by the sun, they die, right? And then in the more, say, Lehman's or Yeoman's plow is to affect that we don't turn over the soil. So we aerate it, but we don't expose it to sunlight. This is in California, a big station that they came in and they patterned plowing it. I know it's difficult to see, it's misty. But functionally, they're slowing down the water. And this was also another place where they did it. This was a dairy, and the dairy was pumping the liquid sludge or poo down the hillside and the slurry was going down the hillside and caked up and killed all the grass. So there was just a big caking of slurry down the hillside because some dairies do things like that. So they came in and they pulled the Keyline plow to break the slurry so that they get the grasses to grow back, to regenerate that, because that's pretty nasty. So there you go. If you're a consultant, so people like Darren, he's going to get, he's consulting to large-scale people. He needs accuracy in his designs. So this is called GSI. You can apply for GSI and pay for the service. Basically, this gives you contour mapping that's been done from space. So this overlays. So he gets his Google Earth picture, and then he flies and he gets his contour map. So you can see the accuracy of the contour map, and that's how he can lay out those designs to give to the people to say. And what he's doing is he's giving the design basically for free, but he counts how many trees, how much earthworks, how many dams, how much fencing, if he needs to put a gate or whatever he needs to do. And then he says, and if I'll come in with my team and we're going to do this for you. And then he also provides like management services. So you saw he went back and consulting, management, pruning, whatever's needed. And then they come in and they flip the farms. So you can call it a farm flipping business. And he's targeting low productivity, say herbivore farms, and then trying to flip them into what we might call forestry, fruits, or nuts. This is the first farm ever that they started in Australia. This is why the concept called Water for Every Farm, the book by P.A. Yeomans. This is his farm, the Yeomanmeyer. Another reason, it's hard, it's a bad picture. It's black and white from back in the day. But it has lots of water, so there's probably 20 ponds on this landscape, okay? So pretty cool. That's a more modern picture of the farm taken by David Holgram in 1994. It would be really nice to have a new picture because he probably just had an older camera, probably a pocket cam, so it's still not the best picture. But what we, at least from my computer, you can see the background is really dry, like super dry, almost like desert. And his place looks like a golf course, okay? So this is the concept that within 20 years, he turns into a region of Australia that's almost like a desert, and his farm almost looks like a golf course, but he doesn't irrigate it. So he holds so much water in the landscape because it doesn't allow. So what he said is in Australia, they don't have a water shortage. There's no water shortage. There's enough water that falls on the continent of Australia for the entire thing to be green. The problem is it runs off. They're not storing it. So the issue is the runoff due to the topography, not the issue of not enough water, okay? So if we went and we would do topography and we would hold the water on our farms, there's water for every farm. That's his point. So Yeomanmeyer in 2007, really nice. That's his topography map. So there's a map of the topography. He looked at the map, he lays out the farms. Okay, and we will then stop here for a second. We'll come back and I'll tomorrow show you a little bit more. Sorry it took a little bit too long today. But functionally we'll start going through and we're going to start looking at pictures, okay? And we're going to work on the pattern. Can you see the picture of a landscape with no water harvesting? And can you see where the water harvesting would be? So this is how we use our imagination to see a pattern. So we start to see what it looks like and we start to look at what patterns look like. And once we start to see the pattern, we can say, okay, that's the key points. Then when we go to layout and we use these tools, right, then you really go, wow, I can see key points. I can identify a pattern in a landscape. And I have the tool, which is not very difficult, A-frames and a site level and a string line. And then I can go in and find the contour to slow the water down. And just with that, you can change the ecology of the landscape. And this, again, targeting these degraded people typically cutting down forest and targeting how to get the water back into the system to regrow traditionally trees, okay? And that's what we want to look for. And these are some farms, the first ones. So in 1958 was the first time that P.A. Yeomans made a swale, okay? And that's his swales, and we can see the swales in 2007 still working fine. Yeah, really nice.
Would it be an either or with Keyline and swale?
They work in combination because you could have a swale to stop the overland water flow if it's so erosive. Then between the mainstay swales, you would Keyline.
Keyline is going to be more useful as the lower slope.
Yeah, but no, you can do it between. So they're not one or the other. Some farm may only have swales. Some farm may only have Keyline, and some farms may have both. It's not an either or. Okay. Just that Keylines are sometimes cheaper. And unless you have, and if you don't have erosion, for instance, remember I said some places don't have erosion, right? Keylining would definitely be the way to go over, but if you have an erosionary event, you stop the erosion, block it, control the erosion, then you put key lines between the blockages. So like every 100 meters I'd key line, then I have the block, yeah, like that.